Welcome to Podcast Shorts, a shorter version of the podcast you know and love. I'm Alex, and boy, did we have some huge news come out from the Disney front. It appears soon they will be going rogue one day, splitting their partnership with Netflix and deciding to go off on their own and create their own streaming service. In response, Netflix has replied that they believe that this streaming service that will be offered by Disney could be a complement of their own, and they are going to attempt to keep the Marvel and the Star Wars properties that they stream on their services. Now, at first glance, we all may write this off. It's another one of these major corporations trying to attempt to create a streaming service, trying to get into the game and reap all the benefits that Netflix and Amazon paved the path towards. It's easy to write this off, but when you really sit down and start to think about it, this potential streaming service could be a huge offering. Think about it for a minute. And there's a reason why Netflix is wanting to keep the Marvel and the Star Wars properties, because those are huge content drivers for what this new streaming service could be. With Disney, you have ESPN, which I believe are going to start and create their own streaming service starting next year, not 2019, which is when the initial Disney streaming service will probably take off, according to reports. So next year, we'll have an ESPN streaming service. If you take ESPN and all of its major sports operations and all of its offerings, and you combine that with properties such as all of the family-oriented animation features that are offered on Disney channels, Disney XD, all of the Disney princess brands, past and present. If you combine all of that together, you combine it with ESPN and the things that they own, such as Marvel and Star Wars, you could have a streaming service that not only is family oriented, that is for everybody, that would represent a large portion of the big brands, the big names, the top players in geek culture. You could also have a service, if they take the ESPN aspect and its separate service and combine it, or some aspects of it, you could have a family-oriented streaming service that could dominate the streaming market. Yeah, I know that sounds very big, that's a very bold claim, but think about it. Disney owns so much. They own all of these different properties, from geek culture, from sports, from the Disney princess lines, from Pixar. This streaming service could be huge. So let's imagine that it's 2019. Disney's already launched this streaming service. What would be a part of it? What would initially be on it? What would we expect from this streaming service over the next 5 years? As I mentioned earlier, Disney does own ESPN, Marvel Studios, Star Wars, and Pixar. Those are probably the big names. Those are the most recognizable names that people are going to automatically think of right off the bat. But also, as I mentioned, ESPN is supposed to be getting a streaming service starting next year, 2018. So let's separate ESPN from what this Disney mega streaming service is going to look like. Let's take a look and see what it would look like without the worldwide sports leader. Still, it's going to be a juggernaut. Of course, you do have Marvel and Star Wars. I do not think that Netflix, no matter how much money they offer Disney, is going to be able to keep those brands. They're too big to the success of what this streaming service would be for Disney. I almost would guarantee, I'd almost bet money that when this streaming service launches, we're going to see some type of new show, probably live action, definitely animated as well, from Marvel, and the same is probably true for Star Wars. During Star Wars Celebration, it was announced that Star Wars Rebels, the current animation, will be ending after this next season. It's going to be the last season, season 4 of Star Wars Rebels. You would have probably a year gap where you don't have any Star Wars animation. And then wouldn't it be kind of convenient that starting in fall of 2019, you have another Star Wars animated feature launching, and it's something that the fans of Star Wars anticipating for a long time, such as an Old Republic animated show. Dave Filoni, who was the executive producer of Star Wars Rebels, used to be a director that directly had his hands tied into every single episode of the series. Just got a promotion within Lucasfilm, where he's pretty much going to be taking over the entire animated wing. That means that Rebels probably isn't the only animated feature on their mind. Even though it's ending, probably several animated features in the works. And I'm sure he has a huge hand to play in that. But yes, we've already covered that they're going to have a huge portion of geek culture content on this new streaming service. We know with Disney, there's going to be family content, there's going to be animation, there's going to be Pixar, Disney princess lines. They own the Muppet franchise as well, so there'll probably be some Muppet content involvement as well. It'd be nice to see Muppet Babies return, but that's just a personal request. Also, it's not just going to be kid-oriented as well. You're going to have some adult stuff. Disney owns Touchstone Pictures, so if you enjoy movies like Sister Act, if you enjoy movies like Armageddon, if you enjoy movies like Lincoln, those movies were produced by Touchstone Pictures, and I'm sure they're going to have plenty of digital exclusives on this streaming service as well. You also have your television station such as ABC, which owns series such as all of the Shondaland productions, so Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder, all of those. If you enjoy those type of series, those will now probably be streaming exclusively on the Disney streaming service network. And I would not be surprised if Shonda Rhimes has a big part to play in the launch of this as well. Don't be surprised if you see a few new shows come out of her production studios. They also own Lifetime, they own A&E, they own History. Also, surprisingly, angle that people are seeing, Disney and their Disney XD channel has recently branched off into gaming. They have a late night gaming segment now. Not surprising that Disney has noticed that the online viewership for gaming, which is becoming a sport unto itself, is having viewership ratings that rival numbers that their ESPN wing puts up for some of their live events. Do not be surprised if a gaming section is a huge part of this network as well. That will do it for this edition of POWcast Shorts. Remember, we do have a podcast. You can check us out on iTunes and Stitcher. We also have a Facebook fan page. So head over to Facebook and check us out at the POWcast Podcast. Also, hit that like button, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, that's okay too. Just let us know, what did you think about this video in the comments? Also, what did you think about this announcement from Disney and their streaming service? What do you predict will be a part of it? What do you predict will not be a part of it? Do you think Netflix will be able to keep Star Wars and Marvel, at least the movies, and some aspects of them in some way? Anyway, that's it for this edition of POWcast Shorts. I'll be coming back a little bit later in the week to give you my thoughts on the card for WWE SummerSlam. Until then, catch you guys next time.